Most Australians have been squeezed by rapidly rising consumer prices over the past 12 to 18 months. Wages and pension incomes have not adjusted sufficiently to compensate, meaning that many who are already battling to make ends meet are having to pull their belts in even tighter. For those with home loans or are renters, the Reserve Bank's blunt efforts to tame inflation through a series of interest rate increases are inflicting additional severe economic pain. In this video blog, we examine recent movements in key commodity prices as inputs to consumer prices. The initial focus will be on their rapid rise in the second half of 2021, due largely to COVID-related supply chain issues, and early 2022, driven by supply disruptions associated with the Ukraine-Russia conflict. We'll examine some of the often plausible stories that were being told in the 2021-22 financial year, explaining why consumer prices started taking off. We'll then question why some of those stories haven't exactly played out in reverse over the past 12 months to end June 23, when a host of key commodity prices fell dramatically. And two culprits that have probably not helped the reversal process are identified: businesses, both large and small, and the Reserve Bank. Finally, we examine what employees and retirees can do, if anything, to protect their lifestyles against what we consider corporate greed and poor economic policy. Hi, I'm John Lesky, retired personal financial advisor and founder of FinHealth, a guide to good financial health and your financial independence. Our primary data source for commodity prices is the Federal Reserve Economic Database, or FRED, maintained by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis in the USA. It's a treasure trove of data for all things to do with the US and international economy. Many of the commodity price series that we'll examine are themselves sourced by FRED from the International Monetary Fund. The first commodity price series we'll examine relate to energy prices, with key commodities being oil, coal, and natural gas. The first chart examined shows what has happened to oil prices over the past 10 years, with Brent crude used as the indicator. The fiscal year 21-22 spike in oil that translated quickly to higher petrol prices is clearly evident. However, oil prices have since dropped from a peak of about $133 a barrel in late March 2022 to around $76 a barrel as of 22 June 2023, about a 43% fall. Allowing for a weakening Australian dollar over this time, the reduction in Australian dollar terms has been about 38%. Using this chart, published by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission as a guide to retail petrol prices, the peak oil price in March 2022 translated to a 3-year peak petrol price of about $2.15 a litre in March 2022. In Australian dollar terms, the price of oil was about the same price in late October 2021 as at the end of June 2023. At that time, the chart suggests the price of petrol was about $1.55 to $1.60 per litre. But, as reported by the NRMA, the average price for regular unleaded petrol in Sydney on the 26th of June 2023 was $1.736 a litre. That is about 10% higher than in October 2021. Now, there probably will be all sorts of technicalities explaining this discrepancy, but it's hard not to suspect a good part of the rationale for the stubbornly high price of petrol in the face of almost 6 months of much lower oil prices is fatter corporate profits. The next chart shows the export price of coal from Australia for the 10 years to end May 2023. Again, the massive spike in prices around the start of the Ukraine-Russia conflict from early 2022 is evident. Prices have since dropped sharply, back to levels seen in the second half of 2021. The next chart shows the trajectory of liquefied natural gas prices for the past 10 years, with the same rise and even more dramatic fall evident. With coal and natural gas prices key determinants of electricity pricing, these two charts would suggest that electricity prices in Australia should now be on the decline after the sharp increases of the past 12 months. But if you're like me, you've probably recently received advice from your electricity and gas retailers that prices will again rise steeply from 1 July 2023. Unfortunately, the prices that producers and retailers of electricity are locked into for coal and gas aren't the spot or open market prices shown in the charts, but rather contract prices agreed at earlier times. It would appear they may have been settled on terms closer to mid-2022 market prices, and consumers are now paying the cost. To say the least, it's bizarre that since 1 October 2021, my advised gas tariff has increased by 68%, while at the same time, the spot price for liquefied natural gas has fallen by about 70%. Ironically, the electricity and gas price increases will feed into the September quarter inflation figures, again providing false justification for the Reserve Bank to further increase interest rates. The high likelihood is that prices should begin to fall in the next 12 months, regardless of what the Reserve Bank does, as new contracts are more reflective of current coal and gas prices. Next, we'll have a look at what's happened to the price of building materials. The chart now on the screen examines the 10-year price for lumber, a key building component. Again, the 21-22 price spike is evident, as is the rapid decline since March 2022 to levels last seen around July 2021. This next chart also shows that the price of steel, another key building product, has also fallen from its peak, but still remains well above the levels seen prior to January 2021. However, the falling price of both coal and iron ore, inputs to the steelmaking process, suggests that further falls in steel prices are likely. The sharp rises in the price of building materials through the 21-22 financial year were more than many home builders locked into fixed price contracts were able to absorb. The inevitable result was that many builders went broke, leaving thousands uncertain as to how they will be able to complete the building of their home and at what cost. Despite the fact that the price of building materials is on the decline, it's likely that surviving home builders facing reduced competition will include a large uncertainty margin in any new fixed price contracts for some time into the future. If you want the benefit of lower building materials prices, you may have to bear the price risk yourself by means of a cost-plus arrangement with your builder. Finally, on a lighter note, while many companies use the rise in commodity prices and supply chain issues as excuses to massively increase prices, one inflation story that didn't pan out quite as the industry spokesperson projected was the $7 coffee by the end of 2022. In March 2022, the president of the Cafe Owners and Baristas Association of Australia predicted that the average price of a flat white could jump from $4 to $7 by the end of the year, primarily due to coffee shortages and shipping costs. This chart shows 10 years of coffee prices to end May 2023. Prices peaked in February 2022, just prior to the $7 forecast, and have fallen over 20% since then to end May 2023. As to freight costs, this next chart from the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that freight costs have declined from about 7% of the value of imports in February 2022 to 4.6% in March 2023, almost back to pre-pandemic levels. Fortunately, the $7 coffee didn't eventuate, despite the lobbyists' attempt to soften us up, and I'm still able to buy my $4 flat white. The picture on commodity prices is remarkably consistent across all commodities examined. A massive spike in the 2021-22 financial year, followed by large falls since then. This chart of a 10-year price history for an all commodities index provides graphical evidence that this pattern was widespread. Why then haven't consumer prices in Australia begun to fall almost as quickly as they rose? I believe there are at least three reasons, including 1, contractual rigidities, for example, as in electricity and gas pricing, where prices charged to consumers lag actual market conditions. But this effect should reverse over time. 2, profiteering by businesses that are taking advantage of price rises driven by temporary and reversible factors to increase their margins. And 3, the Reserve Bank's interest rate policy that had no effect on the commodity price rises and supply chain issues that triggered the initial price rises and limited impact on their reversal. But the interest rate increases have almost certainly led to higher inflation through rises in housing rents as landlords attempt to offset increased borrowing costs. What can employees and retirees do to protect themselves against greedy businesses and poor economic policy? Belt tightening is available to everyone, but unfortunately, if everyone withdraws spending, it will bring on the recession the Reserve Bank is willing to risk to reduce inflation quickly. For employees with strong bargaining power, they should negotiate salary increases that more than compensate for actual and expected inflation. For retirees and others relying on investment income, given that increased corporate profit margins are suspected as an inflation culprit, it may be worth slightly increasing asset allocations to shares in the expectation of future higher dividend payments. Not great options in response to 2 massive supply-side disruptions, that is, the pandemic and the Ukraine-Russia conflict, that in my view have not been helped by inappropriate interest rate policy, a weak federal government response to cost of living pressures, and corporate opportunism. Hopefully, you found this video of interest. I'd like to know what you think. Please provide any comments or questions below. Finally, thanks for watching.